You know what I think is hilarious is the number of people that think that you need to be some extraordinary person to build wealth and to do really good things in this world in terms of your financial life. And I'm not like sort of, selling you on anything. It's actually like crazy simple. And yet it is very hard. I've said this many times on this podcast. Is that it is very simple to do these things and nobody ends up doing it because it is too hard. They don't want to suck it up and actually do the tough work. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Massac. I'm Associate Professor of Innovation Strategy and Entrepreneurship. And I created this whole Reciprocity Project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I want to pay the favor for to help you out. So I want you to think about this, right? So your financial life is a quantitative metric. It is a number, and it is a display of many other things that are going on in your life and how well your life is actually put together. That's really all it is of what you're thinking of. There's lots of quantitative or qualitative things. So things that are not, you can't put a number on. It's kind of like tacit, what's called tacit. You can't sort of feel these kind of things. There's lots of that kind of stuff in your life that are symbolic of, kind of having your life together and having sort of pieces fitting together, right? So it might be, are you dressing kind of shabbily, I guess? Whether, if it's on purpose and that's your style, then you have your life together, right? But if you're kind of, depressed, kind of moving through life in the sense of like, this is not working out for me, and you don't really care about things, that's kind of a qualitative metric that something is going on. How much exercise you get, or what you're eating, all those kind of things. Like, these are all qualitative sort of indicators that you're paying attention to things and you're kind of on the ball. But your financial life is often a metric that sort of shows, and I don't like metrics typically, but it is a metric of, do you have things sort of put together, and have you thought through this? Is this kind of a thoughtful thing? Have you intentionally got to where you wanted to go? And that's often what you really need to do with your financial life to sort of build wealth, is to stop and think, is my life together with this? What can I know to sort of get my life together? Honestly, that's really what it is. If you are the type of person that picks up a book, a financial literacy book, and you read, or you read 3 or 4 different financial books, these kind of things, right? Like, there's lots of personal finance books. There's some that I don't quite agree with. There's some that I agree with more. I'm a fan. I'm going to tell you, Dave Ramsey, I'm a fan of his financial advice. I'm not a fan of his sort of political advice and things like that, and sort of his, religious advice and all that kind of stuff. There's more people in this world than the sort of picture that he paints. But, I'm a fan of the sort of basic steps and stuff. Like Susie Orman, for example. I'm not as much of a fan, but I still really like the advice. It's still sound advice. The Wealthy Barber, it's fantastic advice. All of these kind of things, if you were to pick it up, and they all have different secrets, different sort of formulas and stuff. They're all slightly different, but they will all kind of get you to the same spot in the end, to different degrees, right? And if you're to pick up on any one of those things and you actually were to do it intentionally, you would do okay, and you would build wealth in your life, and you would be, you would do okay by doing all of those things. But, the fact is that most people don't do this. And the fact is most people are going to argue with me about how to do these kind of things. And the fact is that, it doesn't matter what I say and what I do, it's still going to have the same response. These are more sort of symptoms of things going on in your head, of the qualitative things that are going on in your head, than the actual sort of doing the effort of it. None of this stuff is like rocket science. And it requires you to actually intentionally think about it and do the right thing day in and day out. And there's a lot of things in life that are sort of symptomatic in this sort of way of people not wanting to sort of take charge of various different things in their life. And you have to realize that a lot of this is, all of these kind of things is symptomatic of people believing that life kind of happens to them instead of them thinking of like, hey, I can do these things. Why don't I change it and take care of my own life and realize how can I actually get there and really take charge of who they are inside. And it requires, it's hard. It's hard for me to think about. This is not something that just kind of like happens overnight. And this is gradual process where people kind of have to get beaten into their head that they need to take charge of these kind of things. And many people will never really realize that they can actually do these kind of things because people are selling them hogwash in various different ways that they don't need to do these, or they can't do these things. It's too much, all these kind of things. It's all of that is just absolute hogwash. But what you need to, come to terms with as a person is that, hey, I can actually take charge of these things. And it's not up to somebody else to sort of do this. It's for me to actually control, right? It's thinking about your locus of control. I'm thinking of like so locus of control is like, how do you determine who controls what, or what you think is controlling things? And there's all sorts of psychology research on this, right? Like this is like pretty, concrete, I guess, but I'm sort of telling the story behind all of this. But what we have to sort of come to terms with, it's up to us to decide to actually do these things. And ultimately, there is a lot of environmental impacts and things that sort of impact where we go and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it's for us to decide and think about, like, okay, I live in a shitty environment. This is not working out for me. How do I change this thing? What is the incremental steps to actually change this thing? Now, can I say, like, if you lived in, an environment that always suppresses you and always keeps you down, are you going to, get to a certain stage that you're going to be better off than absolutely everybody around you? Probably not. However, can you get to something where you are going to have a better life than what you did without intentionally struggling and, having that sort of, I'm going to do this kind of stuff? Absolutely. You can do this. And to the degree that you can sort of advance up, like if you lived in a country that was absolutely suppressing you and suppressing its residents, is that, can you sort of get to a point where, that you can build enormous wealth and, have a really happy life? It's hard. It's hard. However, can you be better off by doing that? I strongly believe that you can, by determining of how to actually do that, right? Like living in an environment that sort of suppresses you, you can still work around that, right? Like so your country might steal your money eventually. That happens, right? They might appropriate your property. Well, you can hide your property in your backyard. That's what people used to do in America, if you didn't know. My grandparents did that. There's probably still a can of money underneath where they used to live, in the ground of where they used to live. There's a lot of this kind of stuff that you have to do, but you have to determine that you're going to do it, and you're going to be the one that sort of lives that life where you take charge of that kind of stuff. So you can either let life happen to you, or you can take charge and do the things that you need to do, like read a couple of financial books, or listen to some podcasts about financial stuff that's not sleazy and that actually do work. It's up to you, really, at the end of the day. And all of these are indicators of much larger things that are going on in your life. And if those larger things are going on in your life, I'd encourage you to go see a psychiatrist or, a mental health professional, whatever, all those kind of things. It does help. And many of us have used them. Many of us benefit from them. And I encourage you to have the strength to do it. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day.